You know, some things just go together. Apple pie, ice cream. Baseball, hot dogs. Here's one for you. Ice and Canadians. Steve Perry, Journey, Easter, and Jesus. That's what I want to talk to you about on the bottom line today. This whole idea of a world without Easter. This is the bottom line, recorded April 16th, 2017, Easter Sunday. A world without Easter. You know, this idea of Easter, or a world without Easter, it's just really not possible. And yet, society would like to pull Jesus out of it. But man, that's just such a crazy thought. Think about pulling Jesus out of Easter. You know what that would do? First of all, none of you would be wearing crosses around your neck anymore. Because if you were, and Easter didn't exist, you'd be declaring, hey, I really support execution. That's fantastic. You know, people would be coming over to your house, and it'd be like having an electric chair in the corner of the room. Would you like to see the collection of electric chairs? We really like execution here. It's just a silly thought. But because we live in a world with Easter, we celebrate that Jesus beat the grave by way of the cross. Yeah, the enemy thought they had him down, but he rose from the dead, and that is an amazing thing. And that's why we live in a world with Easter. If we lived in a world without Easter, you know, the priests in the temple courts would still be very busy. The whole idea of animal sacrifices, they would be tending to that, slaughtering the animals. You know, in those holidays, when there was about 7 different sacrifices a year, so literally the temple court, it sounds kind of gross, but they would run with blood. There was just so much sacrifice going on. And that was the priest's role. And his biggest day of the year was the Day of Atonement, where he would make his way into the Holy of Holies. And that was an area inside the temple courts. And it was a place where behind the veil, that was the Holy of Holies. And only he was allowed to enter in there. In a world without Easter, he would still be going that way. Sure, he'd have a big, huge rope tied around his waist, because if his sacrifice wasn't deemed acceptable, if the sacrifice for the people wasn't seen to be right, he could be killed right there on the spot, and they would literally drag him out with the rope that was tied around his waist. Folks, we don't live in that world anymore. Jesus overcame that. Jesus, when he stood or was on the cross, he declared that it was finished. And that veil that was about 4 inches thick, 60 feet tall, it was torn in two from top to bottom. A miraculous thing happened. And as Hebrews 9 lays it out in history for us, that God was glorified in that moment. And that which separated us from God was now... we had open access. In other words, it was free. We have a way into God's access, and we don't have to do the sacrifice. We don't have to do all that stuff. You know, in a world without Easter, the tomb, well, it would still have a stone in front of it. And there would be his body would have been decomposed by now, but Jesus would still technically be laying there. Folks, we don't have that. We have a tomb that is empty. It's the one thing that really separates us from all the other religions of the world. It's a scoreboard moment. Jesus won, Satan 0, and the score never changes. Jesus has won this. No other faith can declare that they have a Savior that has risen from the dead. And it's an amazing thing, because we live in a world with Easter. We can stand on the fact that, hey, we not only get to celebrate Easter, but we get to celebrate with our lives and living for Christ and being called and living the way that He's called us to live. It's very exciting for me. But sometimes we live in a world like there was no Easter. You know, on the parade route with Jesus coming into town, people were laying down their jackets and their cloaks and their robes and all that stuff. But after Jesus passed by, you know what they did? They bent back down and picked it up. And that's so apropos to the way we often live our lives. We get very excited about Jesus, and then after a little bit of time, and He's just passed by, we pick up our own lives again. But the Word tells us that we are to lay down our lives and take up the cross and follow after Him. Hey, because this is a world with Easter, we get to live with the all-powerful Jesus that has made a way, closed the gap between us and God, so we can have free access and so we can know the power of the resurrection in our own bodies one day. Hey, thanks for tuning in today, and we hope to see you back real soon. Please share this with all your friends, and God bless you, and happy Easter.